Solicita-se a comparência do proprietário do veículo com matrícula AG 26LP junto ao secretariado. Obrigada.
Good morning. Dr. Carlos Moedas, Mayor of Lisbon, Dr. Helena Alegre, Head of the LNEC Hydraulic and Environment Department. It is my great pleasure to welcome you to the first LNEC Lisbon conference here at the National Laboratory for Civil Engineering. The National Laboratory for Civil Engineering was created in 1946, and it is a public institute of science and technology. Over this time, LNEC has established its activity and presence in Portugal and worldwide, sustaining its action on values oriented towards public service and development and diffusion of knowledge in all fields of civil engineering. It is LNEC's responsibility to pursue the public interest by providing service of science and technology to public and private, national and foreign entities contributing to innovation, dissemination of knowledge and technology transfer. It is also LNEC's mission to assist government in the pursuit of public policies and to provide technical support regarding quality and safety of works, persons and assets, protection and requalification of natural and built heritage, and modernization and technological innovation, particularly in the building sector. LNEC points out with satisfaction the successes achieved through its existence, and inspired by its history, finds it opportune to put into perspective its performance to face the future's challenges. As part of the 75th anniversary celebrations, the conference was held entitled Thinking the Future LNEC, Reflecting on Its Past, in which several structuring themes of the engineer of the future were addressed, such as sustainability, mobility, rehabilitation of building heritage, and digital transition. Following that event, it was decided to launch the LNEC Lisbon Conference Series by holding an annual international conference for strategic debate on emerging themes or those of market relevance to Portugal, which aims to attract reference institutions and experts on selected topics. The theme of each of these conferences will be chosen to cover the entire research and innovation activity of this state laboratory. For this purpose, an invitation was sent to Lisbon City Council to collaborate in the organization of these conferences, which was accepted and which brings us great honor. Thank you for that, Mr. Mayor. LNEC and Lisbon City Council has a remarkable history of successful partnership in applied research and construction projects, the results of which are important to share with other national and international cities and territories. In this year's conference is about floods, water scarcity, and extreme events, and is organized by the LNEC's Hydraulics and Environment Department into 3 types of sections: lectures, roundtables, and presentation of strategies and flagship projects from a select set of reference institutions, national and foreign. A final notice must be given to LNEC's Lisbon Conference 2024, which will take place in October. It is with great pleasure that I announce that this conference will be about urban risks and societal resilience, and its main topics are earthquakes and tsunamis, accidental actions and robustness, cascading events, assess risk management, risk mitigation, resilience, and sustainable development. Therefore, it is with great expectation that we foresee this event and welcome all to join us on that occasion. We believe that it is a great opportunity to share research trends and approaches, as well as to explore potential opportunities for collaboration. Thank you very much.
Mr. Mayor of Lisbon, engenheiro hidráulico Carlos Moedas, Dr. Laura Caldeira, President of LNEC, dear colleagues, dear friends. It's really indeed my great, great pleasure and honor, my privilege to be here today with all of you, celebrating the 75th anniversary of our department, the Hydraulics and Environmental Department of LNEC, and the birth of this series of conference, of the LNEC Lisbon Conferences series. The selection of the team for the conference was collaborative and inclusive. We discussed a lot. We wanted to bring forward issues of great significance to society related to water and environment, naturally, topics in which LNEC already currently works and works for a long time, but also topics that are looking ahead and topics that are relevant for our future. Where LNEC should continue to acting and contributing to fostering new knowledge, promoting best practices, and acting as a catalyst for innovation. Our intention was to choose a team that would be all-encompassing, that would cover the different areas of activity that we have, spanning from tap to the ocean, covering a wide range of natural and man-made systems, and be relevant to the audiences beyond the water professionals. It should come with, as no surprise, that the choice was, as you know, floods, water scarcity, and extreme events. And the day, I don't know, we should see the positive side of it, couldn't be better chosen. From a too long series of dry days, we have the day as we have today. So I think the team is well justified by itself, and St. Peter's collaborated. So extreme hydrometeorological events such as intense rainfall and coastal storms leading to flooding and inundation and prolonged droughts resulting into severe water scarcity have significant social, economic, and environmental impacts. These adverse impacts are, as we know, or can be, as we know, exacerbated by climate change and human actions. Our aspiration is really our big aspiration to conclude the end of these 2 days more inspired, more knowledgeable, sorry for not being able, having created more opportunities for collaboration, ideally with a handful of recommendations that will guide us at European, national, local, and institutional levels in defining or adjusting research and innovation strategies to be implemented in the coming years. We aim to transcend the obvious and well-established strategies and fervently wish that together with all of you, we can take a significant step forward building a more ambitious and improved future. With the intention of not consuming too much of your valuable time here during this session, I'd like to conclude by addressing some practical matters for this first day and acknowledging those who made this event happen. This morning is the time to set up the scene, to start the thematic sessions with the extreme events and to do some celebrations. Hopefully the weather is, this was written 2 days ago, hopefully the weather is not too bad at lunchtime, but that's still a wish, in order to allow you to go out and enjoy the wide variety of restaurants that we have at the Alvalade neighborhood, as lunch is not included and will be on your own. The afternoon will feature sessions that I anticipate will be very interesting. As a concluding moment for this first day, we'll have a half-an-hour concert of Portuguese guitar, followed by a tasting of sustainably produced white wine from Lisbon and artisanal beer produced at the Alcântara Water Factory. We're also going to have the presentation of LNEC's movie that we are still thinking exactly the best time, depending, if possible, still by the end of this morning, if not possible, by the end of the afternoon. These are all symbolic acts meant to serve as a pretext for enjoyable conversations among all of you. Moving on the well-deserved thanks, We are very grateful to all the speakers who contribute substantially to these 2 days of reflection and sharing, and to all of the participants who are here. We also express our gratitude to the Municipality of Lisbon, which promptly and enthusiastically accepted our challenge to be a strategic partner of LNEC in this series of conferences. We also thank all the supporting entities of the conference, the water associations based at LNEC, the Junta de Freguesia de Alvalade that will provide us with a short concert at the end of today, FCCN that helped with making the videos, Horto do Campo Grande that helped with the plants, Águas do Tejo Atlântico that will support the beer, sorry, let me, I think I'm leaving. And and then the municipality, with the strategic municipality of Lisbon, we have so much that I'm not going to list all the support because it was so many. So we are really very, very grateful to the municipality of Lisbon. And as a chair of the conference, I cannot but express my gratitude to the LNEC Board of Directors for their encouragement and support, as well to all my colleagues, not only from my department, but also the scientific and technical dissemination sector. They were really fantastic. They have been fantastic. The Cabinet of Public and the Technical Relations, the structural department, well, everybody who has really made this event possible. And I end by wishing everyone 2 excellent, enjoyable, and fruitful days. Thank you very much.
Muito bom dia, LNEC. Good morning to everybody. I'm very happy to be here. I had prepared a couple of words in Portuguese, but I see that there's a lot of people that are coming from outside, so welcome to Lisbon. Very happy to introduce myself to the ones that come from outside. I'm the mayor of Lisbon, but I'm an engineer at heart, and I'm very happy because this is home for me. So, President Laura Caldeira, Professor Helena Alegre, de bastonário da Ordem dos Engenheiros, vice-bastonário da Ordem dos Arquitetos, ex-bastonário e amigo, professores, meus queridos professores, Saldanha Matos, em nome de Saldanha Matos, all the professors of mine in hydraulics, and that inspired me along the way. I'm very happy to be here for a personal reason, as I said, but also to cherish LNEC and this lab. And especially in moments where, you know, institutions like yours are so important for the future of countries and for the future of institutions. And probably you never thought about this way, is that today politics are out of sync with policies. And the way that you can sync politics with policies is by having data that advises politicians to focus on policy and not on politics. And I think LNEC is the place for that. I mean, LNEC is the place where you dig into data, and then with data you can do policies that are not ideological. They are what they are. They are facts. And so your institution has been in this country, I would say, the heart of that, the heart of people that like data, the heart of people that like numbers. And with those numbers, you can influence the country. In hard times where you have so much extremism and so much populism, it's very difficult to come across. And sometimes you feel lonely, and a lot of you feel lonely because you have the data, and you see that people don't follow the data, then don't do the right things based on data. So I think that first, my comment today to you is to cherish your work. You know, I remember my first conversations with President Laura Caldeira when we had ahead of us one of the biggest events that we would do in the country, when the Pope came. And I wanted to do and to know about the data. We had 1 million people coming into a plot of land. And we had a fantastic conversation. And that conversation was about what are the facts, what is the data, and what are the risks. And then as a mayor, as a politician, I have to take some risks. But if I take the risks based on data. And I know where I'm putting my foot. And I would start by thanking Laura Caldeira, because that conversation at the beginning was very important for me. It was very clear, it was a private conversation, and sometimes we have to have private conversations about like putting everything on the table, and I never thank you for that. So thank you to the LNEC, thank you to all of you, and congratulations for so many years of hard work. I remember when I finished my degree in engineering, there was a lot of people, the brightest minds wanted to come to LNEC. And there was a story that my professor Quintela, one of the biggest influences of my life, he used to say about the president of LNEC, that people would say, oh, but you're going to LNEC, no, it's so bright, but you know, the salary is very low. And the president likes to say, yeah, look, if you want to make money, set up a shop or a butcher or do something, but don't come to LNEC. If you come to LNEC, it's because you really want to be an intelligent place, but it's not for the salary. I suppose it's the same today, but I always remember this story. But I wanted just to tell you a couple of things that we are doing and that have been, for me, kind of like getting back to my own life. You know, I started as an engineer, and then I worked hands-on building wastewater treatment plants in France. So that was my first job. And then at some point, life got me to other ways, and that's normal. I mean, some of you stay in one way, some go to other ways, and today I really feel that I'm come back into my source. And one of the things that makes me so proud is that for 20 years, and one engineer called Carmona Rodrigues, he was the mayor of Lisbon, he imagined how could we do something that would be transformative for the city, to build 2 tunnels of basically get for once and resolve the problem that we have with floods. Of course, you cannot solve it 100%. And for 20 years, there was discussions going back and forth. It was too expensive. And finally, I get the privilege, because this also, I mean, eventually luck to be in this position at this moment, to be the one that is really building the 2 major tunnels in Lisbon to avoid floods. And I really want to invite you to come with me to see it. So now we have in Monsanto, in Complete, the machine that came from China that will dig this amazing hole of 5.5 meters of diameter, 5 kilometers of distance from Monsanto to Santa Apollonia. There's the first tunnel, another tunnel from Chelas to Beato. And who would tell me in my life, and life is really mysterious, that I would be the one at the beginning of this adventure. And I hope I'm the one that will get to the end of the adventure, unless something goes wrong, but nothing will go wrong, because we have the best engineers in the world. And so the other day I was visiting the starting point. So imagine the place that looks like several football fields, and you have this tunnel machine that is quite unique. So first I wanted to invite you, we'll do some visits. We will organize with the Bastonario and everyone to go there, because I think it's worth it to go. And you know, it's invisible to the eye. And so that's why I want to make it visible to you and visible to the people of Lisbon, that people can see what we're doing. You know, and certainly that was a big help of a lot of you, because we had so many discussions with the people, and that's where science and citizens have to be together. So many people around the area were telling me, no, this is very dangerous. You build the tunnel and my building will come down. And I said, look, don't talk to the politicians. Let's get some of the engineers and explain you that the tunnel goes 70 meters down, and there's absolutely no danger for your building. But you know, the help of the engineers, the help of the people that are the specialists is so crucial these days, because there's so much misinformation that people feel vulnerable. And so when we started to do this campaign of getting door to door and talking to people, you know, you were a crucial part of it. And I wanted to honor one of our colleagues, Silva Ferreira. He has been there for 20 years, waiting for these works to happen. And finally, it happens. It's a reality that will change the city. I mean, it's probably, a lot of people ask me, but what will be your legacy for Lisbon? And I say, you know, I have a lot of things that in my mind are visible legacies, but probably there's no legacy like this one. If we are able to finish this 150 million euro investment from A to Z that nobody will see, because, I mean, this will be underground, you know, if that is a legacy from all of us to the city, it's a legacy that I consider not mine, but the legacy of the great engineering of the country. So that's one of the things that we are doing that I think will be a point in time where Lisbon can be proud of having the biggest works that will protect us from floods. And there's no city in Europe, apart from London, they're building a tunnel under the Thames. But apart from that, there's no better than that. And it will be Portuguese engineering. And so that is something that I wanted in the day that you are working here and talking about floods, extreme events. Lisbon is such an example, and that's why the municipality had to be today with you, because we want this to be known, especially to my colleagues at the JRC and the DG, all the DGs that are here, colleagues from the Commission. Thank you for coming here. And thank you to tell the news, I mean, to tell about what we're doing in Lisbon in terms of these great works. Then, I think there's small things that are very big that we are doing. And those small things are the ones that people see. And, you know, it's a little bit like Europe. Europe is always invisible to the eye of people, unfortunately. And especially in times of war, a lot of people come, and we saw that with Brexit, saying, oh, but Europe, what does Europe bring to us? You know, Europe brings us everything. You know, first, this tunnel would not be possible without Europe, because I don't have 150 million euros without Europe. I don't have it. So thank you, Europe. Then, when you think about the biggest things of Europe, you think like the biggest project of Europe, Erasmus. Why? Because people saw and felt Europe in their pockets. I was 23 years old, I went to Paris, and I had this check on my pocket of 16,000 French francs at the time. Do you think that one day I will forget about that check? No, never. So how do you put sustainability? How do you do that today, and you put that on the pocket of people? And then people will be with you on the fight. Because if they don't feel it, they will not do it. You can have a lot of activism, and I understand the activists. You can call attention, but then people, I mean, they don't move if they don't feel it. And I think that the things we did in Lisbon are really a great example of that. You see, when you have today 91,000 people in Lisbon that don't pay public transportation, that's on their pocket. You know, and that people tell me, no, but that's nothing, because 91,000 people, they have the public transportation, but they haven't changed from the car to the public transportation. That's not true. Half of them, and we have the numbers, they didn't go to public transportation. So the demand doubled. So of that 91,000, half of them never took public transportation before. And now they are taking public transportation. And they know that their mayor takes public transportation on Fridays, all Fridays. I cannot do it every day, you understand. I mean, I have to come, I have to go to a conference, but on Fridays, I make the purpose to go on public transportation. You know, it's symbolic, yes. Did I really need to do that? No. Is it important for me to do it? Yes. You know, and I've learned so much by, like, just taking the bus. I remember a lot of people have noticed that now on our main Marquês de Pombal, there's no more political banners. It was not my idea. It was people on the bus. We would go to Marquês de Pombal, and they would say, we would like all these politicians, big banners. This is ugly. And I said, yeah, you're right, this is really ugly. I mean, we have to take care of this and just stop doing this. You know, and so, you know, if people see you, it's symbolic and it helps. Then I wanted to thank Catarina Freitas. She's here with me. She's my municipal director for environment. And the first day I told Catarina, we have to change in Lisbon, we have to have LED lamps in the streets. I mean, this is absolutely horrendous that we're spending this much money in electricity because we don't do something simple. And of course, I started saying this in conferences, and Catarina started being anguished and a little bit stressed because, you know, it takes so much time. You know, it takes so much time. I mean, we're fighting. Can we do it ourselves? No, we cannot do it. How do we do it? We have to open a public tender. How do we do that public tender? How we make it totally transparent? And one year goes, and another year, and now finally we did it. You know, but it takes time, and that's something also that is very important for the young people. I see some of the young people, is that democracy takes time. You know, I see that a lot of people take me on the street and say, why didn't you do that? And I say, you know, because I cannot just do it like that. You know, there's public tender, there's the court, you know, there's everyone that is looking at it, and you have to do it right, and sometimes, but now we will change 16,000 lamps in the city to LEDs. That's absolutely amazing. The other project, I'm sorry that my friend Alexandra Serra is not here, because we had our project called Water Plus, and Water Plus was a success, is a success, and will be a much bigger success. We are basically using wastewater treatment plants, water from the wastewater treatment plant, that now we don't call it anymore wastewater treatment plant, I know, Fábrica d'Água now, it's a beautiful name, to use that water to clean streets and to water the gardens of Lisbon. You know, and that's, again, it's in the pocket of people. You see, like, how much, I mean, we basically would pay 4 million euros in our water bill in the municipality, with water that is drinkable, that would come from 100 kilometers out of Lisbon to Lisbon. And 75% of that was not used to drink. So why you use drinkable water not to drink? I mean, what the waste, I mean, it's outrageous. But when you do that, people then say, look, I'm happy that you are doing that. And so, look, I could go on and on, but I don't want to, it's just I get very excited to be at LNEC with my colleagues. And I wanted just to wish you a great conference from Carlos, o engenheiro hidráulico, that I am in my heart for all my life. That's what I've learned, and sometimes I know that a lot of you, the ones that don't know me, put me some labels of politics and stuff. That is normal, but I try every day to be above that, above politics, and what helps me to be above politics is my love for engineering, that I try to do. Sometimes I'm not able, sometimes I do mistakes, we all do mistakes. The thing is that on average, I try to do not as much mistakes on average, but I also do mistakes like every one of us. We just have to be, as I think politicians should be, equal to equal with people. And equal to equal with people is to inspire people sometimes, is to try to do things. And it's a great pleasure to be here. Laura, Professora, Senhora Presidente, and all the friends also from Europe. I would finalize with thank you, Europe, to all of you that are here. And obrigado, LNEC, e muitos bons anos aqui para os nossos grandes engenheiros e para as nossas grandes engenheiras. Tudo de bom para todos. Muito obrigado.
So, I'm sorry, back again. I think you're going to see me once in a while. So it's my role to set up the scene to this LNEC Lisbon Conference 2023. So as we know, extreme hydrometeorological events have high adverse impacts, and these impacts can be exacerbated by climate change. And these can impact on people, can impact on economy, can impact on the environment, but also impact on cities, impact on river basins, impact of estuaries and coastal areas. When we have heavy rain events, we may have inland floods, as we had tonight in several parts of the country. When we have coastal storms, we may have coastal erosion, we may have damaged infrastructure at the coastal areas, we may have coastal floodings as well. And when we have droughts, we all have been feeling in Portugal very much this prolonged drought, we may have water scarcity. But today we are celebrating our 75th anniversary, and so it's a time perhaps to look back and to look at the engineering and research, looking a little bit back in order to learn and to build the future. So before going ahead. So not long ago, and quoting now Engenheiro Carlos Moedas, sorry for referring to Engenheiro Carlos Moedas, Engenheiro Carlos Moedas, today I think, he has in this double capacity. I am here at LNEC since 1980, so I can tell you that I don't have a big bill in the bank, but I'm rich. I feel a rich person for being here for these decades. So we can become rich working here at LNEC, not in the pocket, but in the heart and in the mind. So not long ago here at LNEC and in Portugal and in Europe and in the world, for engineers, we used to have a problem, an issue, a problem. We put some money on that. We did a lot of calculations, engineers would calculate, and we were going to produce a new grey infrastructure solution. This is the typical linear economy rationale. We used to work, and this is what I learned in university, and most of us who are engineers had the same experience. Learning how to do a lot of calculations based on stable time series for hydrometeorological phenomena, no longer the case. Clear boundaries between public services. We knew what water supply was, what wastewater management was, what ports management was. Today we are in a much fuzzier boundaries between the different services. We used to design our waterworks from scratch, to build new, to create new infrastructures. And we used to look a lot of what you used to call safety factors. So these also changed a lot. So in traditional competencies and methods for engineering, we all had a sound basis on math, chemistry, physics. We could get some expertise in hydraulics, hydrology, hydrogeology, structures, and, some more, but these were the basic competencies that were used for our design. We used numerical models, physical models, data analysis, and then we came up with our new grey infrastructure solutions, as they were the aim, the objective were the waterworks. Today, it's different. Today, we play with societal objectives. We need to achieve something that is important for the societies and for the economy, for the environment. Typically, we work with more than one objective. We have a multitude of objectives that need to be dealt with together. We need to have, from the point of view of engineering, we cannot afford just working in silos and the civil engineers or the hydraulic civil engineers working alone or the structural engineers working alone. or the mechanical. We need to work all together, the oceanography, the IT, the biochemistry, the environmental engineering. So we have all the types of engineering that need to cooperate between each other. And as this was already mentioned also by our mayor, we cannot afford ignoring very important competences outside the engineering, for instance, governance, economy, the social sciences as examples. And instead of being the new infrastructures, the new grey infrastructures, we now have basically or mostly to rebuild, to rethink from existing infrastructure. We are not starting from scratch. Basically, we need to think from what we have, and we need to rethink, to build new. And we need also to build collaborative, multidisciplinary new interventions, and combining the grey, the green, and the blue infrastructures all together in a coherent way. So we need to extend, to rethink, rehabilitate existing infrastructure, to extend useful life of existing assets, physical, but also from the functional point of view, manage efficiently, build with nature through collaborative strategies, implement circular economies. And to do that, we cannot ignore that we have a lot of challenges, and I highlighted two of them: unstable time series in terms of hydrometeorological phenomena, and fuzzy boundaries between the different public services. So, in terms of research and innovation on floods, water scarcity and extreme events, we have now new problems and drivers, we have new objectives to achieve, we have a new generation of technologies evolving at a short pace that offers us a lot of new opportunities to work with, and we have increased uncertainty about the future. And this is perhaps the most certain fact we have. We need to play with uncertainty. We are sure that we need to play with added uncertainty. But on the other hand, the waterworks we are working at, they are long-lasting assets. We are talking about concrete, we are talking about iron, we are talking about really long-lasting. So we need to find solutions that make this flexible in order to cope with the evolution pace. And we need to have interventions that are necessary to protect people, economy, and the environment from multi-source hazards. So in this conference, what are we looking at? What's the aim of this conference in terms of looking ahead in terms of research and innovation? We'd like to try and help replying to the following questions. What are the main issues that we need to address? What are the most critical needs in terms of innovation? Beyond the obvious, some things we already know, but we'd like to give a step forward in this discussion. What are the challenges and strategies that our research peers are adopting to learn from each other, to inspire each other? What can we jointly contribute to build a better future? The future is made of partnerships. We need to partner. We need to create more and more sound partnerships and collaborative work. So what can we jointly contribute to build a better future? And how can the new generation of tools and approaches be useful in the context of the floods, water scarcity, and extreme events? Here, we collected a number of recommendations that from our point of view, from LNEC's point of view, is a basis for reflection, for your reflection. Recognize the essential role of spatial planning in increasing resilience to extreme coastal and inland flooding events in a changing climate. Maintain up-to-date flood hazard and risk maps and management plans based on scientific evidence and modeling, prioritizing areas of highest risk, based on data, based on facts, again, quoting Carlos Moedas. Develop flood forecasting and early warning systems based on reliable data and modeling tools to strengthen preparedness and support effective disaster response. Also, improve the resilience of hydraulic structures. We know that with this added uncertainty, we need to increase the resilience of the existing infrastructures. We need to modify them. We need to relocate critical facilities and, where necessary, make long-term plans to relocate communities exposed to unacceptable risks. We need to promote water efficiency through innovative technological and non-technological solutions, including capacity building and certification. We need to facilitate safe water reuse and support research into treatment and renewable energy desalination technologies to address growing water scarcity. We need to reduce the unsustainable use of water, in particular groundwater, and ensure surface and groundwater quality protection. We need to increase the use of nature-based solutions. We need to learn from nature and multiple benefit solutions, not just one to sort out one problem, but to try to have multi-objective solutions. And we need to develop water-oriented living labs as a very promising tool of fostering innovation and engage citizens, local authorities, industry, and research institutions in the design of innovation solutions. So these recommendations are for you to think, to improve, to contribute, so that we achieve the end of the conference with an improved set of recommendations. So here at LNEC, we have a strategic plan for research, and this strategic plan has 5 main strategic programs. I'm not going into detail in any of the programs, but just the titles or the topics. So rehabilitate asset, assess risk, rethink, adapt, combine gray, green, blue infrastructures, optimally manage, operate the water systems, develop the tools for the construction of water digital twins from the river to the ocean, address advanced water reclamation technologies, but also software tools for smart operation and monitoring, policy and regulation instruments for enabling business models, or asset management of sewer systems integrating nature-based solutions for urban stormwater management. These are just examples of topics that we are addressing and will continue to address. In this conference, we have the 3 main topics: the extreme events, the water scarcity, and the floods. For each one of them, we are going to have either 1 or 2 keynotes. In the first one, extreme events, we are going to have Professor Miguel Miranda as the keynote speaker, followed by the round table. In the water scarcity, we're going to have Cliff Lipshin, that's going to be online with us because he's from Israel. As you understood, as you can easily understand, he had to cancel the trip and is going to be with us via Zoom. And Valentina Lazarova, who is here with us, followed by the round table. And with regard to the floods, we are going to have as keynote speakers André Fortunato, who is around somewhere, and José Pedro Matos, that I know there are José Pedro and André somewhere, over there, and followed by the round table. But as Laura Caldeira also already mentioned, we are going also to have these research challenges and strategies sessions, where we invited a short number of reference institutions, Portuguese and from abroad, reference institutions in these topics, where we challenged them to come with us with what they consider to be their challenges, their strategies, and maybe presenting a couple flag projects that they consider to be relevant, so that we can learn from each other, inspire each other, and identify potential use of future collaboration if it is the case. But basically inspire each other and learn from each other. So to conclude, the good news is that water will be increasingly in the core of societies and economies, so we're going to continue to have a lot of work to do. Floods, water scarcity, and the extreme events will be at the top of the top. New problems will be addressed by research. New opportunities for innovation will increasingly exist. And this is true in Portugal, this is true in Europe, this is true in the world. But it's our responsibility to contribute to build a better world. Quoting Sana Avenharv, sorry, I'm not able to pronounce her Finnish name, from the Finland Future Research Center in Turku, And with regard to the futures, consciousness for hopeful futures, she says the future does not come, it's made. It's our role to make it happen. So we need to know what we want and to help it happen. So, but today, really to finish, today is a day of celebrations and sharing. Making hopefully futures requires collaboration, requires partnerships. We in this conference want to show that, the importance of collaborations. Research institutes need to collaborate and to co-produce not only with each other, but with all the other stakeholders of the society. LNEC has always valued that a lot, continues to value that. And in this conference, this is part of the rationale of the program, as you can easily see. We are going to have, for instance, a presentation on the Aqua Research Collaboration, a collaboration of research institutes of Europe where that LNEC integrates. We are going to have examples of European projects where LNEC is part of, and there will be a video playing in the hall that you'll have the opportunity to see that video to learn more about our projects. We have highlights of the collaboration between LNEC and the six water professional associations located in our campus. This is a highly successful path, the collaboration between research and the professional associations, and often not so much valued, and so we'd like to show you a very short video for this collaboration. I'm going to show it straight away. So where is the video?
Active collaboration between researchers and academics in research institutes and water practitioners in professional associations is a highly successful path toward the design of innovative and appropriate solutions. This is the context between LNEC and the 6 water associations hosted there. The complementarity of their missions and activities contributes to more intelligent use of water, bringing the maximum value to society in a sustainable path. Jointly, the water associations at LNEC have impacted a large number of professionals, researchers, and public and private institutions over the years. Annually, around 2,000 people and institutions are impacted. Amongst them, they ensure representation in the most important national institutions in the water sector. For example, they integrate the advisory and/or management board of the Ministry of the Environment, the Portuguese regulator, and water administrative offices, just to mention a few. And their expertise is requested for the elaboration of the most significant strategic plans in the water sector. Together, we aim to foster efficient and sustainable water services, integrated management of water, talent renewal, enhancement of the social valorization of water services, sustainable, resilient, and livable cities. We all share the conviction that each one of us plays a role in the attainment of these objectives, aware that the combination of the contribution of our associations with that of other relevant institutions in the water sector in Portugal and abroad greatly enhances the potential impacts of our activities individually. We firmly believe in the increasing relevance of partnerships and collaborative work in a setting of increasingly complex, multidisciplinary, and diverse challenges.
So I would invite you to meet me with, so I'm most grateful to the associations who produced, with the support of FCC and the foundation, for scientific, FCCN, sorry, it's easier. They produced this video. They'll have a slightly longer version that will be running outside, and I will also invite you to see. So today, it's really a day for celebration. So just before going for breakfast, I'd like to tell you that today is the 75th anniversary of LNEC, of the department. And this is the 70th anniversary of our big boss, Jaime Batista. So you can see how professionally we are. So we programmed this topic after such a drought with all the weather and for the day where our big boss accomplished his 70th anniversary, birthday. So, Jaime, we have, and I don't have it, I don't know, something I'm asking for someone to help me. We printed the poster of the conference. As you know, this is the first conference in the series, very symbolic. And we printed in a special paper with the support from the municipality of Lisbon, very grateful to them as well. And so it's a smaller size than the bigger one. And this is just symbolic for you. You know how much you mean for all of us. Jaime was my first boss here, was the first person I met here. He was my first boss forever. I have no words to describe Jaime. Jaime was the head of the Urban Water Division here for many years. Jaime was the head of the hydraulics department for 12 years. Then he was the regulator. Then he came back to LNEC with the challenge of creating Liswater. He continues to be very much engaged in Liswater. And he's a reference for Portugal. He's a reference for Europe. He's a reference for the world. It's really so much of a privilege, of a joy. And when we realized this was a coincidence, of course, the choice of the date was not deliberate. But when we realized this coincidence, we need to find this expressly symbolic. It's just more than symbolic. But Jaime, please, big hug. I know that you have to run rapidly, but at least a time for a big hug.
Well, divided between the surprise and the emotion, let me just say a few words. This is my house, 48 years of professional activity, most of them here in this place with fantastic people like Elena and so many colleagues and friends, learning to be a professional, a member of a network, national, international network. And you said that I'm now 70. I do not believe exactly on that, but anyway, I'm ready to continue for many years, and I can tell you that you feel very well when you understand that you was able to do during your life something that had a contribution for society, for your citizens, for your society, and to become a little bit better as a society. That's what I was able to understand in this place, where I learned how to be a professional, how to analyze problems deeply, how
to become rich, not wealthy.
Well,
not wealthy, but rich.
Yeah, but salary is not the...
No, but rich. You became rich.
Yeah, rich in many other aspects, and feel after so many years that I have now so many friends. I was able to give a little bit contributions for society, and I recommend to young people, the new generation, that you can be in love with LNEC and other similar organizations, because it's not only a relation between a work relation, it's also an emotional relation, here in this house, you have a fantastic environment to do what you feel it's useful for society. And I'm happy to be in that process, and I will continue for several years, I hope.
Many years.
Well, working with you through Lisbon or whatever organization. But thank you so much for your friendship, so many years, fantastic life, professional life I have here and other places. And I can tell you that, this is the last message for young people here, that your knowledge, Portuguese knowledge in this area and other areas are very well appreciated in many places in the world. It's a little bit surprised to go like Elena. I tried to visit most countries I could, but I never was able to do so well like Elena. When I arrived to some country, someone tell me, Elena, I've been here before you. But in so many countries, it's impressive how the Portuguese knowledge can be useful for those societies also. So be proud to be water professionals in Portugal and doing very well here and many places in the world. Thank you so much to all of you.
So we have now the break, and we are going to resume at, please help me, at what time? At 11, right? So we are resuming on, and please be on time because we have really tight timetables. Thank you very much.
Solicita-se ao proprietário do veículo com matrícula 94 VO 49 94 VO 49 o favor de se dirigir ao secretariado.
welcome to LNEC again. We are starting this session on extreme events. So extreme events such as inland floods and severe water scarcity, but also coastal storms such as Hercules in 2014 and Hurricane Lorenzo. Well, extreme events such as floods and severe water scarcity, but also coastal storms such as Hercules in 2014 and Hurricane Lorenzo, which caused damage to port infrastructure in the island of the Azores in 2019. All these events can have social, economic, and environmental impacts, and these impacts could be intensified by climate change. So, to help us better understand these extreme events and the action that should be taken, we have a great panel today. This session will start with a keynote presentation by Professor Miguel Miranda, about 30 minutes. Professor Miguel Miranda is a former president of IPMA. This will be followed by a roundtable discussion about 60 minutes with Dr. Jan Martensen, head of the Ocean and Water Unit of the European Commission Joint Research Center. Celso Pinto, head of the Coastal Monitoring and Risk Unit at the Portuguese Environment Agency. Rodrigo Oliveira, professor at the Instituto Superior Técnico, University of Lisbon, and Rui Taborda, professor at the Faculty of Sciences of the University of Lisbon. So it is my great pleasure to introduce the keynote speaker. Professor Miguel Miranda was president of IPMA, the Portuguese Institute for Sea Research, between 2013 and 2023. Until recently, he was also full professor of geophysics at the Faculty of Sciences of the University of Lisbon. His lifelong research focused on marine geophysics and natural hazards. Among many other roles, he served as president of the Council of the European Centre for Medium-Range Weather Forecasts between 2017 and 2019. Over the years, he has become a regular and highly respected voice in the media and among decision makers, particularly during natural disasters. So Professor Miguel Miranda keynote is entitled Extreme Impact Weather Events, the Roles of Social Vulnerability and Climate Change. And please, Professor, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Luis, for your kind presentation. Thank you, Laura, for this invitation that I will try to be at the level, but I'm not sure. And Elena, for your idea of putting me the guy that is going to give some negative notes. I will be completely different from the previous speakers because I will try to put your feet on the ground. And I know I am in the House of the Engineers, but I must stress that I'm not an engineer. So I will try to give you much more the science point of view, and on the end, I will tell why you are the responsible guys and why you are the guys that must solve the problem. Today, most of the northern part of the Portuguese mainland is on an orange warning for rain and wind, and most of the coast is on an orange warning for wave heights. 1 week ago, we were crossing the 7th heat wave in 2023. If you look at the situation in the Algarve, for example, or south of Alentejo, water level is very low, even for use of the people. And the rain that we had yesterday and today will change slightly the situation. So, on the first approach, we could say that this situation is completely normal, because it's typical for Portugal and for Western Europe to have warm falls, to have warm days in September and October. And this is also typical for our winter times, to have rain and wind. So if this is typical, and this is only variability, why are we concerned? I think this should be in your mind, because this is in the mind of most people. Because since at least Roman times, but probably the Egyptian times, humanity found a way how to deal with this variability in precipitation, creating cisterns to store water and creating aqueducts to transport water from where it is to where it is needed. So the idea that we must regularize on space and time the use of water is known for thousands of years. Once again, what is the situation now? I will tell you, there are two different things. The first one is that we are so smart in being able to forecast what is going to happen in the next days that we are responsible for what we should do during this period to mitigate the consequences. And the second point is that climate change is here, and climate change changed everything. I will tell you that in my view, I'm not an expert, but you know sometimes it's better to hear not the experts but the other guys that are able to speak more freely and more easily, that climate change completely changed the statistics of rare events in such a way that every rule, every regulation must be revisited and restudied. So, this idea that if we are responsible because we know is also even more important because even in some times we are not aware what will happen in the next year. We know very well what will happen up to the end of the century. This is something also sometimes very difficult to explain to people. Because to forecast the next 10 years is a different physics than to forecast the end of the century. Because when we are forecasting the next 10 years, we do what is called dynamical forecast. We have an initial value problem. And when we are forecasting for the end of the century, we have mainly a boundary problem, which is very different from the physical point of view. And when both points of view agree, this means that we are very, aware of what we will go on. Thermodynamics, easy thermodynamics explained us the situation for more than 100 years. Well, this is not very encouraging. First, Clapeyron-Clausius equation. For each 1 degree of temperature, we have more 7% of moisture in the atmosphere. Second one, there is a relationship between the carbon dioxide in the atmosphere and the heat transferred to the lower troposphere in the Earth. It is known since Arrhenius, 1890. And we had 100 years to put this in our minds. The problem is that we crossed already the 1.5 degrees of global warming. We are now heading to the 2 degrees. This means that we are facing from 7% to 14%. And this is something that we must keep in our mind when we try to be optimistic on the situation we are able to do, and when we say that we have the means and we have the technology to handle the problem. Because the problem will not be dealt by the brain. And this is the most important point. The problem must be dealt by the heart. And this is something I will come back within some minutes. Take sea level rise, that probably will be discussed by Rui during our round table. If you take, for example, what is the average rise observed up to now, we are not so far away from 20 centimeters. If we have the forecast for the end of our century, we'll have more or less 1 meter. We can say, okay, this is not too much. Any engineer, any civil engineer is able to raise a building 1 meter above. It's not so difficult. And in some situations, to destroy the existing buildings will be a must. But the reality is that when you take the 100-year flood event, and you consider 1 meter high of the ocean, and there are some studies, for example, for Australia, the conclusion is that the event that could happen every 100 years now will happen several times a year. And this is completely different. The problem is not only the statics, the problem is the dynamics. And when we have this kind of statistics, and we rely all our investments on statistics, then we must be able to rethink again what we have done in the last decades. This was already raised by Elena, if I remember well, on one of your last slides. And it is, I will say, one of the most difficult problems you will have to face in the next decade. Not only because there is a huge construction amount. There are lots of buildings, lots of bridges, lots of dams that must be revisited. Some of them will not be at the level to cope with the increased extreme events. And you have to face either to change them, to destroy them, or to rebuild them. And this will not be easy because it was investments that were done for, I would say, 50 years or 60 years. And now we have a very much shorter time lag to solve the situation that we have created. Imagine, for example, another problem that does not have too much to relate with water, but indirectly also, that is forest fires. Because forest fires are a very important problem because they are associated with erosion and they are associated with drought. Every year, have you an idea what is the amount of boreal forest that is destroyed by fires every year? We are talking or something like 5 million square kilometers. This is a natural effect. Boreal and even subtropical forest is continuously rebuilt by the fire. Most of these fires are ignited by lightning. We know from physics that 1 degree of average increase in temperature will mean 12% in more lightning. When we have a drier atmosphere, the velocity is higher, and the velocity is what creates the difference in electrostatic potential in the clouds. And this means that if we have a drier atmosphere and we have more lightning, we will have much more natural forest fires. And this is happening every day in Siberia, in northern Canada. You saw probably some months ago that there were important forest fires in Vancouver. That is, for us, a wet area of the world, and this will not stop. When there is a forest fire and there is rain, there is an extreme of rain, we have lots of erosion. So we have this kind of combination of cascading effects on extreme events that are even worse than their father events. And if we take a global evaluation, you must be aware that in the last 20 years, what is called the fire season increased close to 20%. So the fire season, the part of the year where the fires occur in all of these areas, is now 20% larger. So is this something that we should not expect? No, it's not true. This is expected and is effectively very well transmitted by the climate models, by the IPCC reports. Every report of the IPCC is even more strict than the previous one. So if we know what will happen, if we have a good idea what are the consequences, why are we not able to stop the situation? Why are we always running after the disaster? Because this is what is going on. We are running after the disaster. And there is also something that in most people is not clear. We are not in a situation of climate stability. Climate stability is something very, very, very important because this is what allows agriculture and allows our day-to-day life, allows planners to plan the cities, allows engineers to have rules. And we are not in a stable situation. That's why I never like this word, the Portuguese word of alterações climáticas. We are in a changing climate, but the climate will continue to change tomorrow, the day after tomorrow, and we are sliding in such a way that when you will make calculations, you cannot make them to today. You must make them to within 20 or 30 years. But worse than that, most of the construction is made for, I hope I'm not doing a mistake, saying a mistake here, for 50 years or 100 years of lifetime. You know how many extreme events we will have within 50 years? Can we design infrastructures for extreme events? Because this is not what we have done up to now. We know that there are extreme situations, we deal with them as we can, but we are not fixed to something that is able to cope with any extreme event, because the cost of will be stratospheric. And so, the idea that we have that we are not doing enough is clear in the minds of some people. This is what is creating the radicalization of the environmental fight. Some people, in view of the consequences of what is going on, in view of the forecasts that sometimes seem apocalyptic, have this idea that radicalization is the answer. The worst part of it is that not only radicalization is not the answer, come probably is also nurturing climate skepticism. And climate skepticism is the fuel that politicians like Carlos cannot handle, because they will never be able to handle something that is against the will of people. And it is a very, very strange situation that in most cases, the most effective measures we are able to take at national level are those that are pressed by Brussels. But wait a minute. Why? We all know that a decision taken by Brussels do not have most of the times public scrutiny. It's difficult to understand if it is completely democratic or not. What I can say is that most effective measures we are able to take, even in environmental, not only in climate, they are imported to us. And we are not taking them because people believe. We are taking them because someone believes on it, and he lives very comfortable in Brussels. And this is creating a division in our society that we must be able to understand. This April, there was a meeting on the World Economic Forum where the temperature of the ocean was depicted in the screen. I do not know if you ever seen the picture, but imagine it. You take 40 years of sea surface temperature measured by satellites, okay? Measured the same way, with the same type of equipment, in the same mathematics and physics. And this gives a good idea of what is going on the ocean. Of course, it is warming. Then take the 2023 measurements, and they are completely outside the bulk of the measurements taken the last 4 decades. They are completely above. They are above half a degree. And this was April. I gave a conference to entrepreneurs, I would say 1 month ago, and I took the measurements up to October, and the situation was exactly the same. 2023, we are clearly above. So think on marine heat waves. Also, something you should understand. We've always had marine heat waves. The biggest one you know is El Niño, that is a decadal heat wave, if you want to talk like this. But local marine heat waves existed for a long time. We know them for a long time. They take some days to disappear. They are created, they disappear within some days or a short number of weeks. And in the last, I say year, probably 1 or 2 years, there was some decision that these heat waves should be forecasted because they have interference on fisheries, for example, and on environmental parameters, on phytoplankton. And when people started to compute heat waves, they started by a very simple approximation. They have the normal level, and they create a difference towards the normal. And when they started to do that, every day was in a heat wave. So this was a problem. And to account for this problem, now heat waves are computed taking a trend. You are engineers who understand this. We take the trend, we only see the distance to the trend. From the biological point of view, this is not a big problem because most of the species, like pelagic fishes, they are smart. So they are able to adapt themselves. When water comes warmer, they go far away from the coast or they go deeper. But there is a problem, a much bigger problem for us, is that up to now, 90% of the excess heat coming to the Earth's surface from the atmosphere is absorbed by the ocean. And this has a very, I would say, diffuse effect because due to the heat capacity of the ocean. It's water, as you know. Water has a huge heat capacity. This means that even for a huge amount of energy, the temperature only raises a small amount. The problem is that the ocean is not homogeneous, and we always forget that we are in a dynamic situation and not really in a static situation. And apparently what is going on is that the behavior of the ocean nowadays is that it's not able to absorb so much heat on the surface. This was discussed in the Economic Forum. Scientists like you were pressed to say what is going on, why we have this different situation, and up to now, I am not aware of any reasonable answer. We have a small amount of data from the ocean and from the ocean depth even smaller, and probably there are some change of dynamics that we are always facing. And of course, once again, we have room for catastrophism. Because when we see the geological history of the Atlantic, for example, we know that in some times, the AMOC, the middle ocean current of the Atlantic stopped in the past. So the question is, will it stop again or not? And this will have a dramatic effect on our life. And this idea that our life is stable, that, okay, we are able to cope with these small changes on the climate is a wrong idea. We should not put that in our minds. And to be able to solve the situation, we must face what we have in our societies. And in our societies, we have skepticism rising in most countries. Data from Germany, for example, show that in the last, I would say, 10 years, the skepticism rates from 20 to 30%. And there are studies, sociological studies, that try to understand why. And you know, the most, I will say, difficult conclusion is that there are three main topics that are always controversial in our societies. Vaccines, genetically modified organisms, OGMs, and climate change. And if you do studies to understand what is the origin of the skepticism in these three areas, vaccines are mainly connected with religion and with lack of science literacy. OGMs are mainly correlated with science literacy, but climate change is not related neither with religion nor with knowledge, with scientific knowledge. It's only related with politics. And this is something that, in my view, is clear the most important topic we have. We need to transform the climate change fight in a situation similar to vaccines. We need to transform this in something that is completely transversal to our political landscape. We should not forget neither the extreme left nor the extreme right. This is survival. And on survival, we are all brothers, and we should not forget this. And this is really important, and this is why catastrophism is not a good answer, it's the bad answer. This is why don't wait that to have a better result is only to give more equations and more data. No, it's not that. There is already enough data. There is already enough graphics and equations. What we need is a new lifestyle. I was in 1 week ago, because now as I'm becoming older and older, I am invited lots of time to do conferences somewhere. I was in the north of the country, in the Villarreal, with students from media. And I put them the question, how can we solve this through media? And you know that the best answer I got is that we need to promote different lifestyle. The lifestyle is the answer. Lifestyle is the answer to the problem. And lifestyle, for example, for them means that we should promote, for example, the use of used vests. We should promote change of equipment. For example, in universities, there are lots of people with very fragile economical situations. And even in Portugal, for example, it is not considered normal to sell second-hand or to buy second-hand products or second-hand suits. But we must change this. We must change lifestyle. We must put people, we must fight for the art, and not only for the head, not for the brain. This is not a brain problem. This is something that is préjugé in French, that we must be able to break. And I think that my time is probably already past. There is an old saying of Max Planck that was rephrased by Samuelson that says, history advances coffin by coffin. This is true. It's very difficult to change the opinion of people. And this will also be true in climate change. The problem is that we do not have enough time. We do not have enough time to wait for the coffins. We must be able to live side by side with people that do not agree with us. We must be able to understand them and to push them to our side. Because even if the models are wrong, but frankly, apparently it is not the case. Even the governments are able to change their ways of doing politics, I see no signs of this happening. Even in the best of the worst situations, we have in our hands a big problem. And it will not be solved by silver bullets. It will not be solved by fantastic initiatives. It will be solved in every day by our capacity to talk to each other, to understand each other, and to do our best for the earth. But this is my role, not yours. You are engineers, so you have a much more important role, because you must be able to have a clear image of the priorities for the next decade. You must be able to redesign most of the conclusions you have in the last decades, and to give the politicians the tools they need to decide. But don't forget, you should not speak only to politicians. You must speak to people, and they must believe in you. They must have faith on what you are saying. And this is why, as you know, I have been 10 years in another national lab, that was IPMA, and this is why, since that time, in 2011, I'm fighting for the public research institutions, because I'm sorry to say this, but I will say it, I'm tired of independent commissions for everything. There are organizations that are designed to be able to provide brokerage of knowledge to the people, and they must be seen by our citizens as trustworthy, as people that say what is really going on, where people that they can trust, even when they doubt, even when they are not sure, even when they have a personal interest that is against what should be done. But this idea of the capacity of the national labs to be able to cope with this challenge, in my view, is clear. And I am at LNEC, and I will say, the only way to go ahead is to speak directly to the people, go out of those walls, speak to them, explain what you are doing, show them that you have no interest, that your only interest is them. Because we are here by the people, to the people. And never forget that. Thank you.
Thank you. Professor Miguel Miranda has brought climate change to the center of this session about extreme events. I would have liked very much to have the possibility to have one or two short questions from the audience, but I fear that the time schedule is a bit short. So I would probably ask my colleagues from the panel to join us at the round table, and we'll start our round table discussion here. So, should we be concerned with climate change and extreme events? So what can be done to increase the resilience of cities, communities, the coast? So how can the research community help? This is, we have a great panel to discuss all this. First, let me introduce to my right Dr. Jan Martensen. Jan is head of the Ocean and Water Unit of the European Commission Joint Research Center. He and his team focus on the provision of scientific advice to the European Union, freshwater and marine policies and governance. The Ocean and Water Unit carries out multidisciplinary research and socioeconomic assessments linked to the European and the global hydrosphere. Jan studied molecular biology. He holds a diploma in marine science from the University of Otago in New Zealand and a PhD from the University of Cologne in Germany. So, Jan, you may wish to start.
Thank you, Luis. So, thank you very much for having me here, and actually, congratulations. This is to you, LNEC, 75th birthday, really amazing, fantastic. So, to the next 75 years, and maybe I will join again, hopefully. Well, as you described so very well, I'm here actually to represent views from the European Commission, but very importantly, I'm working for the Joint Research Center, and we are really the scientific arm of the Commission. position. It is our job to provide best available scientific advice to the policies that underpin the governance in the European Union. I'm very glad, actually, and Mr. Möders provided a very nice floor that Europe was lauded so much. That is fantastic. You mentioned Euroscepticism. You might have heard from my accent by now and also from my name. I am German, and yes, indeed, actually, times are changing and it's becoming more challenging. That would deserve a conference in itself, I guess. Now, coming from Germany, you probably have heard in 21 we had a major flood in the Ahrtal in a specific region in the west of Germany. It was actually affecting not only Germany but also Belgium and the Netherlands. And that's maybe a first set observation in line with what you have said. It seems in a way that disasters really in the end kind of unify us and that we sort of learn to react together to them, but even there we have to get better. Now, what has happened there is really a good introduction to what I wanted. Actually, the next slide highlights the key points, but doesn't really matter. I mean, I didn't want to have slides anyway, but that's fine. So really, I give this example because it highlighted something very important. So on one hand, I think we are rather well, and you also alluded to this, in predictions, and when it comes to extreme events, that's hazards. When the Ahrtal disaster was coming up, it was pretty clear something major was coming towards us. Major rain and floods were expected. Did that help us? No, because actually in the end we were surprised, and more than 100 people died actually in an area which is not only beautiful, but on the infrastructure really highly developed. This was a completely unforeseen disaster in the end. And there are several levels to this. First of all, when it comes to these predictions, and this brings me then to my first point, hazard warning, fine, that worked. Risk assessment, no, it didn't. And it brings us also to us as citizens, because in the Ahrtal, the citizens, they're utterly unprepared. They didn't know what to do. So also there we have, and maybe we'll discuss this later, we have to individually become better preparing with these extreme events. I mean, people ran, when these floods were coming up, they ran into their cellars because they wanted to save some furniture which they were adhered to, a bloody television set or whatever, and they drowned. And this is, of course, something that must really not happen. So the first key issue which I would like to bring here in the forum is that we believe we are quite good in predicting things in terms of hazards, but we need to become really better in predicting risks that adhere to this, really setting warnings which tell us what to do in upcoming extreme events, which obviously will become more and more heavy and more frequent. Now, to do that also and to combine with this, we were wondering how can we, you said a lot of data is, or maybe sufficient data is available. Well, that might be so, but the problem is a little bit when we look at the Floods Directive, for example, we have actually nice EU, as you might have guessed, policy underpinning our sort of governance of also extreme events. So there's the Floods Directive. Now the nice thing is a directive means that the member states are actually in a way quite free to implement what is being asked for. But there's also the issue then that mostly decisions and governance is taking place on either national or even more so when it comes to water on regional level. So how can we actually do something that will help us across Europe, better prepare us in terms of risk assessment? And I believe we need to find a better way of collecting, harmonizing, processing, and using data. And in the extension to this, also maybe we should discuss on a scientific level, actually, we have a lot of models at hand, whether we have any opportunity also to harmonize something there. Because at least what I observe, and I know this from myself, once you use a model or even develop a model, you're very fond of it, and it becomes difficult to integrate with other models. I will come to that also in my talk later. Now that is one thing. So how can we actually become better in forwarding risk assessments, helping decision makers and also the citizens to better prepare actually to survive extreme events? The second point is how in general can we perhaps mitigate the extreme events? And there I think it would be good to discuss 3 points. The first one is and also, I mean, this is other extreme events are included here, like water scarcity, obviously. First one is dams. How can we actually better store water? That is not an easy issue to discuss because there are a lot of pros and cons, but I think it's important to raise this. And I live in a very beautiful region in the north of Italy, the lake region. We're becoming less and less lake, actually, literally. And of course, in living in front of the Alps, what is also beautiful are the glaciers. What is less beautiful is the glaciers really diminish at light speed, really. So it's absolutely breathtaking. Water gets lost. So dams, reservoirs would be one means and actually to store water in order to buffer, for example, scarcity, droughts, events. Oh, thank you very much. Yeah, I'm certainly not. A bit like Taylor Swift. Yeah, it's already. All right. Okay, I will improve. Thanks. All right. The second thing is urban greening, and here actually you as engineers come so much. And actually, I'm not an engineer either. I must confess, but I really admire you. I mean, engineering is science in action. So we can develop ideas together, and you can really help to make these ideas real. And urban greening is something we need to focus on. We need to take advantage of us living together in communities and making the best of our buildings, of our roads. I mean, so much water, blue water, is actually just we waste it. It goes down the sink, literally. So we should actually devise buffering systems. We should use urban greening also to create green water, to milden the climate effects we have. So this is something which I also would very much like to discuss. And finally, of course, there are also solutions which again, and I think we will later on have a talk which I look very much forward to, of Israel, which again raised quite a lot of discussion. One solution, contribution to solution, is desalination. We work on this too because we work a lot on the blue economy. And this is discussed in terms of costs, not only monetary costs, but also environmental costs. But it is still actually worth looking at it. Particularly, we did a study on this in the context of combining desalination with renewable energy, because obviously desalination is very energy hungry. But I'm also looking very much forward. I think we will get nice examples from Israel, what is going on there. So this I would like to throw here into the round for discussion, but I also don't want to steal all the space of time, so I pass on. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Jan. I'm asking each participant to try to in 5 minutes or less say. So I will now give the word to Rodrigo Oliveira, he's a professor at the Instituto Superior Técnico, University of Lisbon. He's a civil engineer in this case. He holds a PhD from Cornell University. His activity covers research, teaching, and consulting in water resources management and planning, with a special interest in floods, droughts, and climate change. Among many other studies, he has coordinated recent assessment of current and future water availability for the Portuguese Environment Agency. So.
Thank you very much, and thank you very much for the invitation to be here at LNEC. I consider myself an LNEC person. I started my career here, and I worked here for 2 periods of 2 years each, so it's always I'm very happy to be here. So I have 3 slides just to highlight my ideas. So the first one is an image that shows extreme events, the evolution of extreme events from certain year that I cannot see up to the present. And what you can see on above the graph is extreme wet events, and what you see below the line is extreme dry events. So what you're seeing is that the extremes are increasing, and you have in the same year wet years and wet events and dry events. And so this is a point. Now, next slide. Having on the same year wet events and dry events, it's obvious because the amount of water that we have in the world is fixed. I mean, we are not producing any water. And so this is just a map of 2022 with a collection of all the wet floods, wet events, and in blue, and then in light brown you have the droughts, and in red you have heat waves, which usually are also connected with droughts. So you can see that in 2022 you had droughts in western US, in South America, in Europe, and I remember I was thinking about we were going through this drought, and I was thinking, but where is the water? The water has to be somewhere. Well, it was in Pakistan with the huge floods that we had in Pakistan in 2022. So this shows you that as Miguel was saying, we are into a period where we have more events of floods, more events of droughts, and on the same year, even on the same day. Today we are experiencing some rain events, but we are still on a drought. And then my last slide is some ideas that uncertainty is rising. That's for sure, that the two slides show you that. Stationarity is dead. That was, as Miguel, I didn't combine anything with Miguel, but stationarity is dead. And it's a problem for engineers, because we all design our works based on historical records. We assume that historical records is a good representation of the future. And so we do our statistical analysis of the past, we compute some probabilities for the future, and we design our works to deal with the past. But the past will be the future will be different from the past, and that's a major challenge. So how do we build resilience into our system? Obviously, there are lots of things that we should have done, and we have not done it yet. And that's the first step, is to do the right thing, to do the things that we know that need to be done. And so we have to improve the robustness of our systems. We have to avoid the exposures to risks and to danger, and to have to improve the forecast and recovery capacity of our systems. Now, when we are developing or designing something for the future, then we have a problem, because one solution would be to increase flexibility. So there's a lot of research now in engineering based on the options strategy. So you build something that in the future we will be able to change it slightly to cope with additional danger or additional pressure, because at the moment of our early investment, we do not know how much the problem will be, how large the problem will be. So we'll start building something that later on can be increased in their capacity. So that will be a solution. Now, this approach of increasing flexibility is like an incremental approach, and that's a problem there, because at some time we need to completely change our model. And then if we have in our mind that this solution will be to slightly increase our infrastructure capacity slowly according to the new, as climate pressures will increase, that may lead us to a dead end, because at a certain point we need to completely change the model, the solution, and then I mean the incremental approach was the wrong path in the past. So we have to. That's the big trap in my. How do we include in our models some big changes that will require lots of investment when there's so much uncertainty, and which hinder our ability to prove or to justify the large investments that we are going to make? And that's the big thing. That's probably the biggest challenge to engineering. And I'll probably stop here. And
so our next speaker is Rui Taborda. Rui Taborda is a professor at the Faculty of Sciences at the University of Lisbon. He has taken part in a research project in the fields of coastal geology, coastal morphodynamics. He has professional experience in studies related to coastal planning and management. He has served on the Coastal Working Group and Sediments Working Group, and is a member of the scientific panel of the National Strategy for Climate Change Adaptation.
I will get up, please. Thank you very much for the invitation. I will talk a little bit on the coast. I would like first to give a very short insight on the process, and the process that we have on the coast. It's that we have, and here is very simple to acknowledge this, is that we have a changing boundary. So we have a changing boundary, and why this boundary changes? It's very easily to understand, because the sea level changes, either mean sea level, either with extreme events. So we have here a very dynamic boundary that, in fact, is in the front line of climate change. You all understand that the extreme events and mean sea level will change. But in this case, we have another issue, that is the morphodynamics. What I mean here is not water is important, but sediment in this case is also important. And when the sea level changes, the sand also changes. And for instance, what we have now is that we have increasing sea level, and we have also a deficit in the sediment budget. This causes a problem that almost half of the Portuguese beaches are eroding. And I think that it's really important. It's very obvious, but our messages are rather obvious, but I think they're important that we acknowledge them. We only have a problem because we have occupation. And nowadays, when you look at the past trend, 10% was water-related problem, 90% was a sun-related problem. So keep this in mind. Sediment also matters, not only water. What are the solutions? The first one, and I think that we should focus also on that, is avoid danger. Sometimes the precious spaces that we still have should be kept in that way. So planning here is essential. So this is also a very simple rule, is avoid danger, please. Obviously, we can't, I need to avoid pushing all the buttons at the same time. I don't know if you still remember this slide. So, what is the other solution? This solution is when we are thinking on the short term. I think this was the standard solution. Okay, we have a problem, we have a house, what can we do? We must hold the line, we don't want the line to change, and obviously we can make hard protections, or the sand that is lasting we can put on the system and fix this boundary. So we fix this boundary either by putting some sand, because we have deficit of sand, either by putting a strong protection there. Obviously, when we talk about this and the sand that we need to the system, we need to talk also on extreme events, because sometimes these extreme events are very bad because they deliver too much water to our cities, but now, without extreme events, we are delivering too little sediment to the coast. So all these solutions sometimes have a good perspective and a bad perspective. What I would like to stress is that we have watersheds, but we should also have sediment sheds, and sediment should also be part of this problem. And finally, I think this is the solution when we think at the long term. There is no escape, that we have to perhaps retreat. I think here, and this discussion that we have been having here, in fact, what the humans and we have difficult to accept is that we are in the changing world. We want a fixed world where our past informs our future, but our future will be different from our past. I think this is the most important thing to say to you, is that we have a changing future, but in my case and in my perspective can be a bright future also. What we have to acknowledge is that the future is not the same, and sometimes this is very difficult to cope. But we can have this future if you anticipate that, if you anticipate this future. And that's all. Thank you.
Final intervention is by Celso Pinto. Celso is the head of the Coastal Monitoring and Risk Unit at Portuguese Environment Agency. His activities focus on coastal risk management, beach nourishment and coastal protection strategies. He coordinates the Portuguese Coastal Monitoring Program.
Em princípio sim, mas teste primeiro, senão eu fico aqui.
Thank you, Luís. You hear me okay? Okay. Rui talked about a very important aspect, it's extreme events, and I'm going to talk about two issues here. Share, this is not the first slide, sorry, this is the second one. Or maybe I made it wrong, sorry.
Este é o primeiro.
Okay, it's the second one, sorry. Okay. My fault. So I'm going to share to you one of the most extreme events that you ever had in our coast. So it is the famous, or infamous, Hercules storm that occurred at the end of 2013 and the beginning of 2014. And it was a disruptive event by a number of regions that I'm going to share with you. And just to show some numbers, so it was 17 storms between the end of December until February. Generalized coastal retreat, we have places of our coast that retreated 40, 50 meters in 1 month. That's the amount of retreat that we have in some countries or in some places in Portugal in 10 or 20 years. This is over a small time period. We have damages in coastal defenses, damages in beach facilities, in bars, in roads. More than 200 events were reported. I didn't sleep for 2 months, so it was really, really scary. It was very difficult to deal with this situation. And we have an estimate of 23 million euros of damages in our coast. And why this storm was very important? First, why this storm had so many impacts on the coast. There was a temporal coincidence between the higher wave heights and the high water levels, so the tide. So in the 6th and 7th of January, and of course, when we have the coincidence of higher wave heights and the tide, we have problems. The second cause was longer periods. We have recorded periods of 28 seconds, and we know the period favors overwashed and coastal flooding because it potentiates, it maximizes horizontal propagation and vertical reach of waves. So we have a lot of coastal overwash. And the last one, we have successive storms that were more frequently more than the beach typical recovery period. So the beach didn't have time to recover because we have a storm and a storm and a storm. But this extreme event, and you talk about this, sometimes events tend to unite us. It changes behavior in people. And it was very important because it was, like I said before, it was a disruptive event, and it forced a change in the mentality of the governments, in the administration. And if it was for this event, we didn't have the littoral working group. We didn't have the sediment working group. We didn't have a coastal monitoring program. I'm sure. So, because, like I think Miguel told, we react. But sometimes reactions are good and put in place good policies and good strategies. And that's a good example. So, we changed the paradigm regarding coastal protection. Rui talked about that. We reinforced the need of changing from hard defenses to soft defenses. So beach nourishment and try to replace the sediment budget and also focus on the data. Increasing knowledge about coastal process, having established coastal monitoring programs. So in this point of view, I think Hercules Storm was a good experience to share mentality in government, administration, and also in society, because I think it really increased the perception of the society that, like Rui told before, we occupied very bad the coasts, and we have to deal with that. We have to decrease our exposure to risk events. The second slide. Okay. Okay, thank you. So this is are the big phrases that we can read in the climate change in the reports. So coastal areas will see continued sea level rise, and we're talking about current events that will occur one time in 1 year will occur more frequently. Here we have also recent work that enlightens the problematic regarded with changes in wave climate. So for Portugal, recent data that are still being produced by the University of Lisbon Faculty of Science to the Portuguese Environment Agency, that's a national roadmap to adaptation 2100, shows that extreme events will be a problem, but in some cases there are some slightly good news. So, for example, 20 years ago, we thought that the rotation in wave direction will increase a lot longshore sediment transport. And what we know from this data is that it will only be a slight rotation towards north, but a general decrease in medium wave energy. So longshore sediment transport rates probably will remain the same until the end of the century. However, that's a problem with, not with the frequency almost will be the same also. So it's not very aligned, but these are regional and global projections. So we are talking about Portugal. The problem will be the intensity of the storms. So we will have the same number of storms probably, but they will be more energetic. And that will be a big problem that we have to deal in the future and increase, like we told before, our resilience and decrease our exposure to risk. Thank you.
Thank you, Sals. So I would probably start a round of questions to my fellow panelists. Perhaps I would start with Rui. He spoke about avoidance, and well, there's a lot of things to be said about the coast. Climate change was already mentioned. From your presentation, I had the impression that what you were telling us is that sediment disturbances to sediment fluxes account for probably 90% of much of the coastal problems that we have at present. Celso showed us that during storms we have to take into consideration that we can have a strong shoreline retreat, particularly in sections of the coast with chronic erosion. So when you mention avoidance, does this mean that spatial planning has an essential role to play in coastal management and coastal protection solutions?
Yes, exactly that, because avoiding is the simplest way to face these changes. And sometimes the way that we want to occupy the coastal zone that is yet without occupation should be in fact stopped. This is the most simplest solution. So avoid, it serves for everything, because we know that are areas at risk and we are still sometimes developing those areas. It seems like a mixed action. We are waiting for the problems. So if you know now with right planning and making more effort on this planning, the problem is that if we don't build in flood areas, we have no problems, but we have to, in fact, be more strong on that. The simplest solutions are the most efficacious. For me, I think that this is not passed to the public. Okay? We have to solve a problem, but the first step should be, we have to avoid that problem. That should be, in my sense, the first approach to this.
Celso, my question is now to you. So you have shown us that shoreline changes, you showed during a storm, there is a strong shoreline retreat. That section of the coast probably is a section that is experiencing chronic erosion, so there will be a slow or limited post-storm recovery. So it's changing, and the sea level rise is perhaps accelerating. There could be other changes that you've mentioned in your slide. So a lot of changes. So what about coastal hazard and risk maps? Do you think that they need to be updated regularly and improved to take into account new scientific evidence, better modeling, and also the changes that are actually happening in the field?
It's a great question, Luis. Thank you. I think we have a reasonable mapping about coastal risks in Portugal. The best knowledge, I think it's in place because we have the shoreline management plans. We define setback lines, so hazard lines. So in those areas, like Rui was telling, we don't allow for more exposure, or in some places, in some urban areas, the exposure will be very, very, very light. But I agree with you. We have to put our knowledge, and for example, focusing again in the coastal monitoring data and the knowledge that, and we are understanding with dealing with those coastal monitoring data will improve, of course, our setback lines. And I can tell you that in some places, our setback lines are perfectly adapted to this trend that we're observing in the coastline. But in some places, they are completely out of date. And we need to reformulate that based on the evidence data and on the field data. So, but I think in that part, I think we have a reasonable mapping and a reasonable regulation regarding exposure to risk. But, of course, it's always space to improve a little bit.
So, Jan, in your talk, you mentioned about early warning systems, the need to move from hazard-focused to risk-focused, so to get more, to take into account information about the occupation of the areas, the assets, the people that live there. So we have some experience at LNEC with research projects on early warning systems, and they tend to be rather local, implemented rather locally, and prioritizing areas of greater risk. There's probably a difficulty in getting all the data that we need to move up to a larger scale this kind of early warning systems. How do you think we can get all the data? Is this a problem of technology, of using new technologies in retrieving data and analyzing data, or is it more a matter of collaboration between entities? What is your feeling?
Right, yeah. I somehow feel this was an invitation that we interact more, which I gladly take up, because this is, I think, first point. Obviously, I mean, this I said also on the onset, there are a lot of very valuable initiatives and research, both on the research but also on the warning and monitoring side going on regional level. And of course, we all can learn mutually across Europe from this. The point here is that it would be fantastic if we would manage to raise the level indeed on the European Union. Now, this is so technology. Well, I think, well, let's come to this later. Data. I think data actually is available there if you want to get together, if you want to learn from each other, if you want to, for example, have best practices. Pilot studies also, which you might carry out together across the European Union, then it would become very important that we harmonize data, the acquisition, from the acquisition to the compilation, to the processing, to the analysis. And this is, of course, a huge task, because normally, and you mentioned it, you have actually well-established data collection systems on regional level, which are quite valuable. And this would create really demand for investment. Now, when it comes to technology, we have very powerful models, and I'm sure LNEC, you are superstars in modeling. I'm pretty sure about this. But also there is a bit the problem, which I also already said, that also there I think it would be time that we get together and look at what we have, how we use it, and whether we can actually combine. Oh, I'm getting better again with the mic, sorry. And then, of course, when it comes, and it was mentioned here before, actually, when it comes to technology, I think what we should increasingly tap into is digital twinning. So we have in the European Union, we will have the ocean digital twin, and under the mission for restore our water and oceans, that will also encompass fresh water. We should take advantage of this, combined with Earth and ocean observation, satellite-based, Copernicus. And I think this is actually in many aspects that we are and have and will discuss something that is perhaps undervalued, which should integrate more. I hope this answers your question.
Okay, thank you. Professor Miguel Miranda, I'm going to now turn to you. You're not an engineer, but you decided in your talk to speak about the need to improve the resilience of infrastructure, built infrastructure. I was going now to, perhaps we have this example last month of the floods in Libya, which may have caused 10,000 dead. And initially there was an immediate reaction pointing that this kind of extreme events might become more likely as a result of climate change. And indeed, the rainfall event was exceptional, but it also became clear soon after that the collapse of 2 dams had made things much worse. So my question is, so we need both to pay attention to the need to improve the resilience of infrastructure, but we also need, as a current activity, to observe, to monitor and to maintain the infrastructure that exists. So do you think that authorities and decision makers are well aware of the importance of this activity? How can we make them more aware, if you think they are not?
This was my point. Politicians, they only express what they need when they address the segments of the population that votes on them. So if you talk to people individually, most of them are very reasonable people. If you are talking like we are here, they will agree with us in every point. The question is that they have their job to fulfill. Their job is to find support for their ideas, to go to the government and to be a decision maker. And this, I think, frankly, this is the point. Because if you ask anyone, should or should not, sorry, Laura, LNEC observe immediately all bridges and all dams across Portugal, they will say, yes, they should. Should or should not LNEC have the means to do that? Yes, it should. When it comes to the budget, the song is different. And there is a much different song. The only way to go ahead, I will repeat, sorry, is not new numbers. And you know, I've worked for Copernicus indirectly in the atmosphere and now on the ocean, on the new organization we are preparing. The question is the heart of people. The question is to convince people that this is their fight. This is not the fight of a corporation of engineers that wants more job or more money or more something. The question is their problem. We are trying to solve, to help them to solve their problem. And this is where the Commission was very bright. Copernicus is a very bright idea that on the beginning almost no one believed it. Warning systems are a good idea. I still remember that 10 years ago, everyone laughed with these yellow, orange, and red warnings. Okay, everyone laughed with the names for the tempests. Now everyone knows the names of the tempests, because people start to have some kind of empathy with the natural world, and this is a very important point. And I will go back to the student who talked to me last week. He's completely right. The problem is lifestyle. The problem is that when you go to the TV, sorry, Rui, you see the lifestyle of the big stars, where they are, in the beach normally. If they are not in the beach, they are in some kind of room with lots of sound, dancing or something. This is the lifestyle that we are evaluating more. And the question is that we must be able to evaluate a different lifestyle, because this is the only thing that people understand. If it is very important to have a very fast car, I still remember when a politician, that I'm not going to give the name, in the parliament, told everyone that he was able to come from Porto to Lisbon in 2 hours or less than 2 hours. Okay? It was a fantastic achievement. Of course, it was against law, but for him it was a fantastic achievement. And we must be able to be different from there. to have people and convince people that are seen as examples, by oath in particular, to give better examples, and not to think that only money and the good and the new clothes and the beach and all this lifestyle that is destroying the planet finally. And to be able to do this is simple. Remember, 100 years ago, nobody went to the beach. The ocean was perceived as a dangerous place. Houses were far away from the ocean. We changed that in the last 100 years. You have some responsibility on that, because you create the idea that engineer was able to solve almost anything. And this is not true. This is not true. There are forest fires that nobody can kill. There are floods that no system can evacuate the waters fast enough. There are no drafts. There are drafts where agriculture cannot stand. So there are limits. And it is also important to understand and let people understand that the limits are there and we must live with them.
Okay, thank you. Rodrigo, I'm going to bring another example. The floods in the island of Madeira in 2010. You were involved in studying solutions. Of course, you cannot prevent future events of similar rainfall intensity. You have studied solutions. So we have already discussed here some possible areas, such as spatial planning, flood and hazard mapping, early warning systems, improving the resilience of hydraulic infrastructure, perhaps relocating critical facilities. What were the options? What you felt was more important to do when you examined the problem?
Well, we did it all. And to recall, in 2010, February 2010, there was following some wet period of 6 months of reasonably high precipitation. In 6 hours in Madeira Island, like some 200 millimeters fall over Madeira, and 40 people died. And the floods there are what we call debris floods. So together with water, there are lots of sediment and large rocks. That event recalled a previous event in 1800 where 1,000 people died. Few people know that there are 3 major events, natural events in Portugal that killed around 1,000 people: the earthquake and 2 floods. The Madeira flood in 1800 and then the 1960 floods around Lisbon. So these are the most killing events in Portugal. So when that happened in 2010, the awareness was there. The government was, we have to do something. So that's important. I mean, unfortunately, sometimes critical events make us do something. And that's unfortunately because some people have to die for us to do something, which is a pity. But at that time, the IST Technical was hired to lead a project to define the broad lines of what to do there. And we joint venture with the regional engineering lab and the University of Madeira. And so we come up with several approaches. One of them was, we recognize there are some infrastructure that need to be improved, and so we developed the idea of retaining the sediments upstream of the major urban areas, and also some channels in the urban areas were improved. We also improved the zoning, and at that time the flooding planning was going on, so the zoning was improved, and people now know where the risk is. And finally, there was a lot of investment on early warning systems, and with the new radar, the meteorological agency was brought in to install a radar in Porto Santo, and new monitoring stations were also installed in Madeira. And so that process is now being led by both the meteorological office and the regional lab to improve the early warning systems. But it's funny now that while people still remember the 2010 event, each time there's an orange warning or red warning in Madeira, people pay attention. People they stay away from the creeks where there are not rivers, and this helps providing some security to everyone. There was a major event 3 months ago that it rained more than the 2010 event, although not concentrated, and everything worked. So, but I mean, the problem is what will happen in 20 years when people forget about the 2010 event. Will they be proactive in searching for security? That we'll have to know.
Thank you. Well, I would love to continue discussion, and in particular regarding how could we increase coastal resilience, but unfortunately we have 5 minutes, and I think I should ask the audience also to engage in this discussion. So please, if you have any questions to our panel, or comments, or please. If not, we continue. It's no problem. But
if not, may I make some kind of last comment? 10 years ago, I had the chance to make this kind of workshop with one of the brightest persons I know in what concerns future forecast. That is Felix Ribeiro. And Felix Ribeiro, in the meeting, discussed this point. Why are we not doing a silent earthquake in Lisbon? Those guys know very well what will be the result of an earthquake. So we know what we will fall. But why don't we imagine, okay, there was an earthquake, that was not, of course, this quarter completely failed, let's rebuild it immediately. Why don't you have a silent flood? Because you are able to predict where the flood will be, what will be the consequences. So why don't you have a silent storm? We should put politicians thinking on this. We can show them a silent storm, a silent earthquake, a silent flood, and say, okay, this will be the consequence. Don't wait for the consequence. You will avoid the deaths of people, the cost will be the same, and we will be prepared. This is a strange idea, but probably not completely stupid.
Okay. No questions? Jan.
Yeah, so taking the word, even though I would have preferred that maybe indeed you comment or challenge me also with what I have exposed. Maybe I was not innovative enough. But I like very much this idea about personal responsibility, because ultimately, of course, we are personally responsible what is going on and what will go on in the future and what happens to future generations. In this respect, and maybe we will discuss this at some stage in the context of water, the circular economy is actually a very important aspect. It gets a bit back to what you said, you know, why do I buy a new jacket? I mean, I love this jacket and it's new, but why didn't I buy a used one? That would have been an alternative. And just to tell you, if you're interested, we have in the Joint Research Center together with the Commission actually look very much into the circular economy, actually, by the way, also looking into social aspects and also looking in how can we actually involve us as citizens in this idea. But we have also something which is online, which is called the consumption footprint calculator. So have a look what it costs, for example, when you take a shower for 2 hours or above, or if you buy new sneakers, and so on and so forth. It's really interesting to see that. By the way, I also will allude to that later in the context of water and Portugal in my presentation, a little sneak preview, so I hope you will be there. Okay, just to say that, really, that we need to discuss water also in the context of the circular economy, and water reuse in this respect is actually a super interesting topic.
Okay, if there are no short questions from the audience, I would, yes, okay.
Just to comment on what Miguel was saying, I think that can be addressed as building trust. So what we need, in fact, is so to the people to accept warning systems, we have to build trust. To accept our ideas, we have to build trust. So I think building trust is the key, so we can talk to them and they rely on us, I think.
Okay, we're moving close to our end. Okay, we need really to close our session. Well, I thank all our colleagues, our excellent panel. I thank the audience. Is there a question? A quick question? Okay, so I will give the quick.
Sorry, I can't resist at that point. Christian Stamm from EAMAG, the Swiss Federal Institute of Aquatic Science and Research and Technology. Sorry, and the comment I would like to make is about the trade-offs that we have between different societal needs. I mean, we had COVID, and our current director, he was leading the COVID task force in Switzerland. And at the beginning, the scientists thought, okay, we tell the politician what to do. And all of the bright people, they put a lot of ideas onto the table, not recognizing that there are different objectives within the society which have all their own right. And it's not just pursuing one single objective, say, okay, we know what is right, and people who do not follow us have to be convinced. We have issues with trade-offs, and especially if we talk about water usage, we have many sectors that are involved, and one option that may be favoring one solution in one sector is detrimental to another one. So often we have these kind of wicked problems. And I think that's part of that issue, and we should be thinking broad enough to be aware of those wickedness of the problem that we have at hand.
Thank you.
I fully agree with you, and it's true that, I mean, there are many issues. The bullet to the problems that we have. We are sometimes able to build some consensus, and slowly we find solutions and we find ways of harmonizing our conflicting interests. The drought in Portugal that we are experiencing is quite interesting. For instance, I was 2 days ago in Mértola. Mértola is in the south of Portugal. There's no irrigation there. The problem there is that their agriculture activity is like extensive pastures for cattle. And so the water is being used just by rain. So they are using green water, if you want to use the jargon. And the whole society was there trying to figure out what to do. They are also trying to push for EDIA, the Alqueva management company, to bring water to the